Our Bible text is Matthew 24, verses 40 to 41. Then 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken and the other left. So here we have Jesus, and he's here in his Olivet discourse. And that is chapters 24 to 25. And again, this forms part of the 5 discourses of Jesus that we find in Matthew. And that is the Sermon on the Mount, the commissioning of the 12, the parables of the kingdom, and rules for church life and discipline, and then the Olivet discourse. And the Olivet discourse is about the unfolding of future events. So yeah, this is Matthew's representation of how Jesus spoke about the future. And it builds on Jesus was just left the temple. He's now in the Passion Week. He's in Jerusalem. It was just before his crucifixion. And here's an occasion where Jesus left the temple. And so if you go to 24 verse 1, it says, Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple. And his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, Do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another, that shall not be thrown down. So Jesus is here, in his role as prophet, is predicting the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. Of course, the Jerusalem temple, it was a magnificent temple complex that was built by Herod the Great. Even in the time of Jesus, they were still working on it. So things were there still to be finished. And for many Jewish people, of course, they would have taken great pride in it. This was the place where God encountered his people. This was the holiest place for all Jews, no matter where you were in the empire. It was magnificent, and yet Jesus tells his disciples, this magnificent temple complex will be destroyed. And then Jesus and his disciples go to the Mount of Olives, and so there the disciples come to him, they ask him, when will this happen? Because it's so shocking. I mean, if you were a first century Jew, the temple was like the focus. It was an important thing. And then Jesus, and they also ask him, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your appearance? So if you read Matthew 24, we must also understand it was written around the year 70 or in the 80s AD. It was written after the time when the temple was destroyed. So the way the evangelist writes this Matthew 24 and how Jesus explains the future, it's written with the understanding that because the temple has now been destroyed recently, the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, the coming of Jesus is imminent. That's the way that the first Christians understood the significance of the temple's destruction. Because the temple has been destroyed, it is a sign that the coming of Jesus was soon. It can happen at any moment. So if you read chapter 24, put yourself in the shoes of these Christians. Because the destruction of the temple, it was a big thing. It was extremely symbolic or catastrophic, depends on your perspective. It had deep and great significance. And for many of the first Christians, this meant Jesus is going to come now, anytime. That's a perspective from how the evangelist also wrote Jesus' teachings about what will happen in the future. So if you go read the rest of chapter 24, Jesus describes to them some things that will happen before the temple is destroyed. There will be false prophets, there will be false Christs or Messiahs, there will be persecution for Christians, there will be betrayal. And then around the time of the temple's destruction, there's what's called the abomination of desolation. And Jesus says around the time you must flee from Jerusalem. You mustn't be there because great suffering will come upon the people of Jerusalem. And then there's also about the Romans besieging Jerusalem. This is the time when the temple will be destroyed. And then there will be this coming of the Son of Man. And that's specifically verses 29 to 31. That's when the Son of Man comes, or Son of Man will come. And again, understand from the perspective of our evangelists who wrote this gospel, and those Christians of that time, 80s AD, around there, this destruction of the temple in 70 AD meant that Jesus can come at any time now. This is it. So put yourself in their shoes and how they understood the symbolic significance of the temple's destruction and what this meant for the return of Jesus. They understood Jesus is going to come back any time now. But Jesus also qualifies the teaching. And if you go to our immediate textual unit, that it's only the Father knows the day and hour, and that's from verses 36 to 44. If we read specifically verses 36, it says there, "But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only." So the coming of the Son of Man, when will that happen? Jesus explains here, only the Father knows when the Son of Man comes. In other words, when he will return. And the question is also now is, because there's this expectation for the Son of Man to come, and we don't know when this will happen, only the Father knows, how must you conduct yourself in this interim period of time? And specifically, if we go to verses 36 all the way to chapter 25, verse 30, the main theme is there is be ready and vigilant. Many of the parables and the teachings there is about be ready and vigilant. It's also about be proactive. Also use and multiply what the Lord gave you. Be busy. Also, the leaders are addressed. They must be wise servants who care for the church. So these are the main themes of, in this interim time period, how must Christians and even the leaders themselves behave? They must be ready. They must be vigilant. Be proactive. Use and multiply what the Lord gave you. And also to the leaders of the church, be wise servants that take care of the church. So if we look at our immediate textual unit, that only the Father knows the day or the hour, it's three images are used. So Jesus speaks there like in the days of Noah, people were getting married, leading life as usual, and they had no idea when the flood came. But when the flood came, it was too late. Jesus also used the imagery of two men that are working in the field, also of two women grinding at the mill. It is some will be taken or the one will be taken and the other will be left. In other words, the one was ready and vigilant, the other one wasn't. And the third imagery that Jesus also used is that this master of the household, it's about him. If he knew when the thief would come to break into the house, he would be watchful and vigilant so that the thief can't come in and break in and steal, etc. So the idea is, be vigilant, be watchful, because you do not know the hour when the Son of Man comes. And that's our Bible verse again. Then two men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken and the other left. So there was this imminent expectation back then. Because the temple was destroyed, Jesus can come at any moment. But also when, we do not know. So that's why here and from chapter 24 to 25, it's be ready, be vigilant, be proactive, use and multiply what the Lord gave you. For the leaders, be wise servants that take care of God's church. So there's this tension. There's this expectation of the coming of the Son of Man. And what do you do in the meanwhile? There's this uncertainty. It's just be Christians, be followers of Jesus, be vigilant, be ready. Do what you've been called to do, and that's to be obedient to the teaching of Jesus.